Billionaire discovers former maid sleeping at airport. What he did next is simply incredible. As Jonathan Hale strode through the bustling terminal of JFK Airport, his mind was a whirlwind of numbers and high-stakes deals. He glanced briefly at the time on his expensive watch, anxious about the meeting that could yield millions, when something stopped him in his tracks. Curled up on a bench, hidden among the chaos, was Lily. The woman who once scrubbed the floors of his childhood house now lay in defeat, her face lined with exhaustion. A flicker of recognition ignited within him, but it quickly dissolved into an uncomfortable pang of guilt. This was a stark contrast to the persona cultivated for years in the high-octane world of Manhattan's financial elite. He felt his heart racing as emotions collided within him, an odd mixture of pity and a reflection on his own journey. For years, he had prided himself on embodying the American dream: hard work, ambition, relentless pursuit of success. But looking at Lily now, something in his worldview cracked. What had he sacrificed to achieve his status? Did his climb really come at the cost of compassion? The whispers from a nearby cluster of colleagues shattered his reverie. Their laughter, dripping with disdain, echoed off the terminal walls. "Look at that cleaning lady. No ambition at all," one scoffed, eliciting a chorus of smug agreement. A surge of anger coursed through Jonathan at their callousness. Who were they to judge her worth, let alone his connection to her? The mention of her struggled life mirrored the very essence of a societal divide he had once tried to overlook but now confronted head-on. Each mocking comment tore through him like a razor, a stark reminder of the values his mother had instilled, but he had seemingly betrayed in his relentless pursuit of wealth. He had always used Lily's absence as a motivator, yet here she was, embodying everything he had left behind. Jonathan hesitated. A desire to help burned within him, but fear of how it might affect his carefully curated reputation stalled his next move. Would rallying behind a former maid alienate him from his peers? His fingers tightened around his phone, pings from influential contacts demanding attention. The moment felt too unsteady. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Jonathan steeled himself against the pressures of expectation, the urgency to intervene grew. He learned more of her tragic story: family deaths, financial ruin that painted a grim yet powerful contrast to his success. In her struggle, he found reflection, a mirror of his own undisclosed fears and unfulfilled dreams. Could he genuinely be the man his mother had hoped to raise? Or was that a naive idealism long lost in boardroom tactics? Anguish clawed at him. As he contemplated taking action, a hidden inheritance tied to Lily's family history fell into view, a shocking revelation that left him reeling. This wasn't merely about crossing paths again. It was a tangled web where privilege collided with guilt. The phone buzzed continuously, messages from his elite colleagues urging him back to their world where profits were the only measure of success. As their demands pressed heavily on his conscience, Jonathan stared at Lily, sleeping soundly despite it all, and wrestled with the paradox of his existence. He stood on the precipice of a choice, feeling the stakes rise higher than ever before. Would he dare to redefine success in the face of crumbling expectations? The weight of both worlds felt unbearable, and for the first time, he questioned what true fulfillment really meant. The flickering lights of the airport dimmed in the background, echoing the tumult in his heart. Jonathan was caught, and there was no turning back. The weight of Jonathan's indecision bore down like a thick fog, swirling with conflicting values and haunting memories. He glanced back at Lily, who remained oblivious to the world around her, cocooned in her own vulnerability. That sight struck him hard, a reminder of the innocence he had almost forgotten in his relentless climb toward wealth and influence. Perhaps, in her neglect, he glimpsed a part of himself he had buried. The raucous laughter of his colleagues pinged in his ears, serving as a stark contrast to the quiet desperation of Lilia's plight. It was as if the very fabric of his existence was unraveling. In this crowded terminal filled with potential deals and celebrated status, he felt like an imposter, a success defined by hollow accolades. Where were the values that had shaped him in his formative years? Emotion twisted in him, forcing a reckoning. In that moment, the man who had chased after wealth and recognition began to dismantle the facade he constructed. He could no longer allow societal expectations to dictate his actions. The revelation ignited something deep within him, a commitment to reclaim his own narrative. It was not merely about helping Lily. It was about redefining his identity. He envisioned a life that intertwined empathy with ambition, where bridging worlds became the cornerstone of success. As the buzz of the airport continued, he knelt beside her, catching a whiff of faint lavender from her tattered scarf. That scent transported him back to times when a simple act of kindness had power. In a low voice, he uttered her name. Slowly, her eyelids fluttered open, revealing tired eyes that flickered with uncertainty. Jonathan felt exposed, as if she could see every burden he carried, every question he grappled with. "Lily," he began, his voice firm yet tender. "It's me, Jonathan." The name hung between them like a bridge. Would she detest him for his transformation and prominence? The silence expanded, filling the voids of their past and present. "Jonathan? What are you doing here?" Her surprise was colored with caution, erasing any illusions he may have had about the warmth she would instinctively feel. Was it disappointment? Instinctively, he braced himself against the rejection he feared could arise from revealing his intentions. I didn't know it was you," he admitted, the honesty unraveling further layers of his carefully constructed armor. "What happened, Lily? You deserve better than this." As he spoke, Jonathan felt a flicker of connection reignite. He could feel the years melt away as he recognized the woman who had once laughed calmly in his childhood home, bringing warmth to their sterile mansion. Lily shifted in her seat, concern in her eyes. "You've done well for yourself, Jonathan. So much better than I ever could. Why would you care?" Her voice tremored, laden with disbelief and fear of his rejection. He stared into her eyes, feeling a surge of determination. "Because I don't want to be the person who only looks out for himself anymore. We shared something real once. What if I help you?" The idea formed as a promise, a possibility of redeeming not only her life, but his own sense of purpose. Could he reach across this cavernous divide they had both traversed? Lily shook her head, visibly distressed. "You don't understand. I'm just nothing now. You can't change that." As her words hit him with unexpected force, he realized he might be too late. She was convinced the chasm between them was insurmountable, forged by years of silence and separation. But then her hesitation began to soften, revealing the flicker of hope he desperately sought. Would he risk it all to help her blossom once more? In that charged atmosphere, Jonathan sensed a quickening, his determination soaring, while panic whispered to retreat. The weight of the moment hung thick in the air, each heartbeat echoing the choices they both faced. As the terminal buzzed with life, Jonathan envisioned what they could build together. A partnership, a shared ascent to transform their suffering into resilience. But as the clang of boarding announcements filled the air, shadows of doubt loomed, a reminder of his tenuous place in this world. What if he took the plunge, committing to change rather than status? Would he have the courage not to just be associated with those who judged, but to fight for a future worth living? With every flicker around him, every passenger rushing, every announcement blaring, Jonathan knew a critical decision awaited. The heart of his being called for action, but through the echoes of his own insecurities, he encountered a severe question. Was he genuinely prepared to face his peers and redefine success? Or would he fall back into the comfort of ambition devoid of meaning? Would he take the leap, knowing it might shatter his carefully crafted empire? Or would the fear of losing everything hold him back? The choice flickered, and he felt the urgency unleash. The time had come to face what he had buried deep within, and for the first time, he realized he couldn't ignore it any longer. The spotlight of self-reflection illuminated Jonathan's internal struggles, compelling him to confront the dissonance between his past compassion and present ambition. As he knelt before Lily, he felt relief battling against a tide of anxiety. Could he convince her that he had altered course, that his wealth could translate into something more meaningful than mere accumulation? He studied her face, etched with uncertainty, and weighed the risks entailed in this rare attempt at vulnerability. The revelation that had nudged him to this moment ignited a storm of emotions. It was not only about rebuilding their connection. It was about reclaiming his own fractured sense of identity. He craved to pivot from a life defined by profits to one underpinned by purpose. "Lily," he said slowly, choosing his words with care, "let me help you. You shouldn't have to face this alone." An unexpected tide of boldness surged within him, yet he feared she would dismiss his offer as mere charity. "Help?" she echoed incredulously. "How can you help me? You have your world, and I have mine. They don't intersect." Her assertion pricked at the edges of his resolve. Did she believe that his wealth and influence were insurmountable barriers? The notion ignited a flicker of rebellion within him. He refused to allow the societal gauge of success to dictate their relationship or her life. "I'm not coming back to save you, Lily. I'm coming to build something new. We could start again?" Her words dripped with sarcasm. "I'm not some project waiting for your rescue. This isn't a game, Jonathan. It's my life." Jonathan straightened, a wave of desperation washing over him. "I saw someone with immense potential once, and I still see her now beneath the pain. I don't want you to be defined by where you are." When silence filled the air, he pressed on. "Let us figure it out together. What if I help you find a job? Or even training for something you'd love?" A flicker of consideration crossed her face, perhaps a hint of the warmth he once knew. "You think it's that easy? Just because you have money, everything will fall into place?" The rawness of her truth struck him. Could he truly understand her struggles? Jonathan felt the walls he had built crumbling, revealing an aching vulnerability beneath. He was acutely aware of the disparity between their lives, yet he sensed that unity in their vulnerabilities could forge a path forward. "I know I can't fix everything overnight," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "But it's my turn to be honest. I've struggled to find meaning, and maybe helping you will lead me there too. We could write a new story." Lily stared intently into his eyes, seeking sincerity. The tension between hope and despair swelled, and Jonathan sensed this was the moment that would determine their fate. This wasn't just about her, this was also a pivotal chance for him to discard the hollow accolades and embrace the uncomfortable yet powerful decision to uplift another. "I don't want to be the man who just ignites change in boardrooms, but instead create ripples of transformation in people's lives," he said, feeling the determination solidify within. "I want to redefine my success with you, if you'll let me." She regarded him for a long, tenuous moment before finally speaking. "And what if you fail? What if you go back to that world and leave me behind again?" The cold edge of her doubt pierced him. He could sense the weight of his past choices bearing down, reminding him that redemption was never guaranteed. "Then I'll face it head on, I promise you." As words settled like the last echoes of a fading bell, Jonathan realized he was shifting, grappling with the real, raw nuances of partnership. There was no promise of a perfect outcome, but the urge to plow ahead invigorated him. The desire to bridge their worlds had ignited a steadfast commitment in his heart. Let us go, Jonathan urged, extending his hand. The distance felt vast, and yet, in this crucial moment, he understood perhaps vulnerability was more valuable than the victories he had perpetually chased. He could see the recollection of laughter, warmth, and a bond that had weathered time reflecting in her eyes. Was she considering it? But the ringing of his phone shattered the spell, pulling Jonathan sharply back to reality. It was a call from his investment partner, a reminder of the commitments awaiting his attention. He could sense the familiar gravitational pull of ambition, threatening to drag him back into the spiraling cycle of superficial triumphs. "Jonathan?" Lily's voice cut through the noise, raw with fear. "You have to decide now." The two worlds awaited him, and right then he felt the chasm widen. Would he return to the life he had only just begun to question? Or would he seize this fleeting chance to pioneer a path that began not in the boardroom, but in the heart of a person he had long neglected? Jonathan paused, caught between the mundane and the extraordinary. The urge to heal was fierce, yet uncertainty loomed like a dark cloud. He took a deep breath, the weight of the decision solidifying against the backdrop of his ambitions forecasted through the phone. Would he take a step into the unknown, or retreat to the safety of corporate victories? The clock was ticking, and he felt the urgency uncoil within. And just as he opened his mouth to speak, the weight of that moment pressed heavily, a question lingering in his heart. What if this choice defined not only their futures, but his very soul? The phone blared insistently, a relentless reminder of the life that had shaped him into the man he was today. Jonathan's mind whirled, oscillating between the lure of wealth and the pull of connection. The voice on the other end rattled off projections and profits, but all he could hear was Lily's testing gaze, filled with skepticism. The weight of years spent in boardrooms shifted in an instant, replaced by the immediacy of Lily's pain. He could picture the sterile offices, the fluorescent lights strumming a rhythm of monotony in his past life, a stark contrast to the softness of hope flickering before him now. It was strange how quickly one could recalibrate their notions of success. He had spent most of his adulthood chasing figures on spreadsheets, yet here he was considering change measured in shared stories and risks. "Jonathan, are you there?" The voice on the other end pulled him back into the present. He offered a quick reply, an automatic assurance that felt increasingly hollow. After ending the call, Jonathan turned to Lily, the reality of his decision weighing heavier than he anticipated. "I need to be honest, this isn't easy for me. I've spent so long valuing ambition over connection. But I don't want to go back to being that man." "What does any of this mean, really?" Lily asked, voice straining against a mix of hope and doubt. "Can you actually change, or is this just another part of your routine?" Emotions churned within him, and the bare truth emerged with an intensity he hadn't expected. "I don't know if I can change everything overnight," he admitted, "but I want to try. For us." Lily inhaled deeply, her resolve seeming to waver. The glimmer of trust he yearned to build felt miles away. Yet, she was still here. Perhaps the mere act of trying held its own significance. "Why should I trust you?" she finally demanded, her voice rising slightly. "You've wielded your wealth to manipulate the lives of others. What is the guarantee you won't do that again?" The accusation hit him like a cold wave. Jonathan studied her features, seeking any sign of softness among the lines of skepticism. He couldn't blame her for doubting. He had spent too long thriving on power rather than empathy. "I can't promise you I won't slip," he said, wrapping words around his own raw truth. "But I promise that I want to fight against it." In her eyes, he saw not just anger, but an echo of his own fear. The fear of failure, or worse, of repeating the patterns he had worked so hard to escape. "Jonathan," she said gently, saving the answer, "you can't fix what has broken in me by merely throwing money at it." A flicker of recognition coursed through him. She was right. Real change was transactional, it required partnership. So let us work on it together, he proposed, the idea rolling off his tongue with newfound conviction. What do you think needs to happen? A silence followed, heavy with contemplation. The air was charged with tension, pulsating as they weighed each word. Would collaborating mean unraveling the threads of their past, solidifying a foundation to build something new? Maybe, she replied, her voice a whisper. But it won't be easy. I don't want to be someone else's charity case. Jonathan felt a surge of determination in response to her resilience. Could he uncover the valuable parts of himself that he had buried under ambition? Then let us leave the past behind, he urged. We can redefine our paths, but we have to do it together. I'll be by your side, every step. Just as lost as you are, but willing to learn. A flicker of hope danced in Lily's expression. It was a delicate balance, one that had the potential to disrupt the foundations upon which their lives had been built. Jonathan took a step closer, trying to bridge the chasm that lay before them. Let us begin with small steps. What do you want right now? Her hesitation hung in the air. I want a fresh start, but I can't do it alone. At that moment, he grasped her hand tightly. It felt like the first genuine connection he had experienced in ages. Then neither will I. As they stood in the uncertain space between past and future, Jonathan felt both invigorated and terrified. The real challenge loomed ahead, testing both their wills, insights, and ultimately the depths of their characters. He had reopened a chapter he thought closed, but it came with a promise to build, not just a life, but a life worth living. As they began to silently negotiate the small steps forward, Jonathan wondered if rebuilding their lives together would mean confronting more than just their pasts. Did they have the strength to tackle the darkness that might still lie ahead, the lingering shadows of disappointment, and the remnants of who they used to be? Just as he contemplated this, a message flashed on his phone. An urgent text from an old colleague flashed across the screen. Jonathan, we need you back. The company can't move forward without you. Would he answer the call that would pull him back into his old life, or resist the gravitational force of ambition? The pull of his past awaited his response, eager to ensnare him once more. Would the pull of the meaningful life he now desired be strong enough to resist? Jonathan stared at the message on his phone, his heart racing in an unsettling rhythm. The text was stark and urgent, a lifeline thrown from the depths of his former life. His eyes darted to Lily, who still clung to his hand, her expression a blend of expectation and anxiety. The air around them felt heavy with possibilities, each one twisting around the core of his decision. The resounding question loomed: could he truly step away from the relentless drive that propelled him toward success in corporate America? For years, he had cultivated an image of the power player, thriving on the adrenaline rush that accompanied deals closed and contracts signed. Yet, standing here now, in this fragile moment of connection with Lily, the allure of those old ambitions felt increasingly hollow. Jonathan? What is wrong? Lily's voice sliced through the fog of his thoughts. The concern laced through her question was palpable, and it struck him that she was not just asking about his silence, but the deeper conflict brewing inside him. I just received a message from work. They say they need me back. The words tumbled out, unvarnished and devoid of all pretense. Aren't you done with that world? She replied, the sharpness in her tone an unexpected jolt. You just told me you want to change. This isn't just a job. It's your past trying to pull you back in. Her words forced him to confront a dilemma he had skirted around. The fear of failing to build something meaningful against the tremor of familiarity that came with his professional identity. Did stepping back into that life mean he was abandoning the promise he had made? I know, he replied, his voice quieter, thinner. But what does that really mean? Am I ready to give up a part of myself? The skills I've honed, the achievements, what about your integrity? Your promise? Lily challenged, her eyes narrowing slightly. Her intensity was both unsettling and grounding. Jonathan felt exposed, as if his intentions, motives, even his dreams were all laid bare. "It's true," he admitted, "there's a part of me that feels validated by success. It's hard to walk away from that. But what I've realized is that I don't want to be validated by wealth anymore. I want to be validated by connection, by the way I can contribute to someone else's life. To ours." The realization struck him with clarity, sharper than he had encountered before. He was at the crossroads of his identity, and the choice to embrace vulnerability alongside ambition felt monumental. Could he transform the skills that had once propelled him toward profit into tools that served interpersonal relationships instead? Another message chimed from his phone, cutting through his contemplation. "We need your strategic mind, Jonathan. Don't throw away everything you built." A flicker of temptation ignited in him again. It was easy to slip back into the comfortable embrace of his old life. But that life had left him feeling vacant, isolated beneath the wealth and accolades he had accumulated. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment push against him. "Lily," he said, locking his gaze onto hers, "I want to choose us. I want to confront my past not as a retreat, but as a stepping stone toward a future we can navigate together." Her eyes softened as the tension began to ease. "Then you need to harm the part of you that finds value only in numbers and profits. Are you willing to fight that part?" "Yes," he affirmed, letting the conviction strengthen. "I want to cultivate something richer. Something that means more." The enormity of his commitment settled over him like a heavy quilt, and as they stood in that moment of trust, Jonathan realized that saying no to that text was the first step in rewriting his narrative. The old Jonathan had always chosen success over substance. Now, he was ready to consciously choose the messiness of human relationships over the sterile appeal of corporate accolades. As they shared a quiet moment, a new understanding blossoming between them, his phone buzzed persistently. Glancing down at it, he saw the familiar name. His former boss calling him directly. Now a real choice awaited him, greater than any he had faced before. Would he allow the past to pull him under, or would he embrace the uncharted waters now reflecting hope and vulnerability? The tension thickened as he hovered over the answer button, his finger trembling over the screen, straddling two worlds with one decision. Would he embrace the new reality, or fall back into the clutches of ambition? The moment of truth hung in the air, waiting for his response. The phone continued to vibrate in his hand, each pulse echoing the escalating cacophony in his mind. Jonathan's breath quickened as he wrestled with the decision at hand. A routine call, a demand from his past life, could easily derail the fragile commitment he had just made to himself and to Lily. With each passing second, the pull of familiarity grew stronger, a gravitational force threatening to drag him back into the well-trodden grooves of corporate strategy and cutthroat negotiations. "Answer it," Lily urged, her voice steadier than his thoughts. "Face it. You can handle it." But her eyes held a flicker of uncertainty, a reflection of his own fears. He stared at the screen, calculating the risk of vulnerability against the safety of his old life, time suspended as his heart raced. His decision was more than just a simple yes or no. It encompassed everything the man he used to be and the man he aimed to become. With a sudden burst of clarity, Jonathan set the phone onto the table, letting it ring unanswered. The finality of that decisive act resonated deeply within him. "No more," he whispered to himself, as if needing to convince his very essence. "That's one step." Lily smiled, but there was a new weight to her gaze. "But there's more to it." Her words hung in the air, morphing into a challenge. Jonathan understood that rejecting the call was just the beginning. It was a confrontation of a different kind that awaited him. In that moment, he realized he was not just on the brink of turning down a job offer. He was embarking on a path of self-discovery that would require dismantling the narratives he had constructed around success and identity. "What do we do next?" he asked, seeking a roadmap in Lily's eyes. She took a breath, her expression brimming with confidence, and he could see her unwavering belief in the journey ahead. "We engage with this new version of you," she replied, her voice firm. "What do you want to find in yourself? What do you truly value?" Jonathan sat back, the concept taking root. It was more than simply stepping away from his career. It was about diving headfirst into forging his new identity. The connection he craved demanded outreach, engagement, and vulnerability, qualities he had previously discarded for the allure of cold ambition. "I want to help people. I want to be present, not just for us but in the lives of others." A slow nod of understanding passed between them. Resolute, he began to develop an approach to the life he envisioned. It wasn't just about action. It required understanding. "I'll start by volunteering. Helping out in my community, mentoring. I need to integrate what I've learned into this new narrative." "That sounds right," Lily said, her approval sweeping through him like a warm tide. "But remember, it's not about building a new career. It's embracing vulnerability and strength at the same time." As the evening darkened around them, an idea sparked within Jonathan. He had previously buried himself in strategy, numbers, projections, the cold estimates of profit and loss. Now, he felt the urge to redefine success. It began to take shape as a larger concept than he had ever imagined. "I want to create a workshop," he exclaimed, the energy coursing through him like electricity. "A place for professionals like me, feeling lost in their pursuits of success, where we can rediscover purpose." "And where you can lead through your experiences," Lily interjected, her excitement evident. "That is powerful." Jonathan began jotting down notes, his mind racing with ideas. The workshop could blend storytelling with strategy, steering others away from the toxicity of ambition alone, emphasizing growth and empathy and community. Suddenly, a new alert flashed on his phone, a message from a former colleague, curious about Jonathan's current endeavors. This disruptive push would amplify his resolve. How to respond? Was he ready to openly share his goals? Jonathan looked at Lily, excitement crackling between them. "It's time to embrace this new reality fully," he said, a newfound determination threading through his voice. The past was a fleeting shadow, and the future beckoned with the bright light of potential. But just as he prepared to answer, a chilling thought struck him. It was one thing to embrace change in the quiet of their shared moment, but how would he face the world outside? Would they accept the man he was becoming, or would they cling to the man he used to be? The question loomed large, as heavy as the night air surrounding them, and his fingers hovered above the screen, trembling with anticipation and uncertainty. Jonathan's heart raced as the message from his former colleague pulsated on the screen, its presence a painful reminder of the world he was attempting to leave behind. The question echoed in his mind. How would he navigate this tightrope stretched between his past and the burgeoning future he was desperate to embrace? "Are you going to reply?" Lily's voice broke through his reverie, and he glanced at her, her features shadowed by the dim light. She wasn't just curious. She was waiting for him to confront this moment. He took a deep breath, the air heavy with possibility, yet tinged with anxiety. Typing a simple thank you for reaching out felt like retracing his previous steps toward a life that no longer resonated with him. "Maybe I shouldn't," he finally said, the doubt tightening around his resolve. "Why not?" "It doesn't mean you're going back. It's just a conversation," she countered, her confidence inspiring him, even as he wrestled with his insecurities. He felt the weight of choice pressing against him. An acceptance of his new journey felt vital, yet engaging with the past brought discomfort, stirring the remnants of an identity he was keen to shed. "But what if it pulls me back in? What if this is the first crack in my resolve?" Lily leaned closer, her presence grounding. "It's a step into your power. You control the narrative, Jonathan. You decide how it unfolds." The conviction in her words pierced through the fog of uncertainty. He realized this was not just about replying to a message. It was a test of his commitment. He settled back into their small living space, the warmth flooding back as he thought of what he truly wanted to convey, not to please others, but to solidify his intent for personal growth. With a reluctant hand, he started typing. Before he knew it, the words flowed an invitation, not a commitment. Thanks for your message. I'm focusing on personal growth right now, working on new projects that reflect my journey. As he pressed send, a surge of relief washed over him. With that one small act, he felt buoyed, as if a weight had lifted. In turn, the echo of doubt that had once threatened to suffocate him now felt lighter. See? That wasn't so hard, Lily said with a tender smile. Yeah, but it's just the beginning, Jonathan replied, a new wave of determination flashing through him. I still have to figure out how to bring my workshop to life. I need to lay the groundwork and find the right audience. Well, why not start with your network? You've got experience and stories that matter, Lily suggested. A rush of anxiety followed at the thought. Networking was part of the life he was trying to escape, yet it was undeniable that his professional relationships, if approached sincerely, could serve as fertile ground for his new venture. Can I really make a difference? He pondered aloud, wondering if any of his former peers would be receptive to this new iteration of himself. What if they see it as a weakness? What if they just laugh? Then they wouldn't be the right audience, Lily responded, her voice unyielding. You're aiming to attract those who resonate with authenticity, not those who merely cling to the status quo. Lean into your vulnerability. That's where your strength lies. Emboldened by her words, Jonathan's mind sparked with ideas. He could start small, perhaps a series of informal gatherings where he could share his story and encourage discussions around personal values and success. An idea began to form around hosting an introductory session centered on authentic dialogue rather than polished presentations. With newfound optimism, he began jotting down objectives for his workshop. The thought of gathering like-minded individuals, open to sharing their struggles and aspirations, electrified him. Just then, another notification chimed a comment on his last social media post, one of a few he had made since turning away from his corporate identity. This one stood out, an inquisitive message asking about personal transformations and motivation. What now? Jonathan mused, glancing back at Lily. Would he engage further, risking exposure? Or would he step back to protect his budding confidence from potential judgment? The moment felt pivotal. The crossroads of ambition and apprehension loomed large, and he could sense that the decision at this critical juncture would define his path. Would he step boldly into the light, or retreat into shadows of familiarity? As he deliberated, the stakes felt monumental, each choice echoing through the corridors of his evolving identity. Jonathan stared at the screen, the flickering notification demanding his attention, like a persistent whisper in a crowded room. The question lingered in the air. Should he respond or stay quiet? It was a chance to engage with someone who had noticed his transformation, yet it carried the weight of uncertainty. His fingers hovered over the keyboard as he weighed his options, the pulse of adrenaline quickening in his veins. I'm going to respond, he declared suddenly, surprising even himself with the assertion. The words he typed next were simple, but felt revolutionary, as he engaged with the thought of sharing his journey. I'm exploring new paths in my life. Would love to chat about it sometime. There was a tangible release as he hit send, akin to opening a window to let fresh air wash over a stifling room. The world felt more expansive, the air less heavy. After the brief thrill subsided, doubt crept in again. What did he actually want from this conversation? Was he seeking validation, or was it something deeper, a need for connection? These questions spiraled in his mind, but he held onto a thread of hope that this inquiry might just lead to something valuable, perhaps even a new collaboration. Lily, sensing his shifting energy, leaned into him with a gentle but encouraging nudge. "You know what?" she said. "You did something incredibly brave just now. You took a step forward." Her words grounded him. Jonathan considered how he'd felt but moments before, tethered to old fears. He realized this was that he had initiated a shift in his narrative, a tangible commitment to his new identity as a facilitator of change. The next day, a reply materialized, a thoughtful response that invited a meeting. As he read the message, excitement fused with anxiety. Would this new dialogue expose him to fresh ideas, or would it dredge up fears that he had just begun to confront? The coffee shop was an eclectic space filled with mismatched furniture and artwork that challenged conventional thinking. It mirrored what he wanted to create, a community where conversations thrived and vulnerability was met with compassion. The thought of his first workshop loomed in the back of his mind as he entered. Sitting across from his respondent, Sarah turned out to be a former creative director, now pursuing a different path. Her insights flowed freely, and Jonathan found himself engrossed in a conversation about passion, purpose, and authenticity. For the first time in a long while, he felt not only listened to, but understood. As the hours slipped by, Sarah challenged him to think bigger. "You have real stories to share, Jonathan. Why not build something that reflects that, not just a workshop, but a movement?" Her belief ignited a flicker of ambition deep within. "But how?" he asked, the age-old fears bubbling up again. Now more than ever, the audience mattered. Would they embrace his new vision or remain stuck in his past identity? "Start with a message," she suggested, her eyes earnest. "No one cares what you were. They want to know who you are and where you're going. Be that change they need." Inspired by her words, Jonathan returned home with a renewed sense of purpose. He envisioned a workshop series underpinned by authenticity, raw discussions surrounding personal and professional growth, and a community where people could share their struggles without shame. Each face represented a new story, and each story painted a tapestry of potential, spinning from the threads of their collective experiences. Yet, as he pinned down more ideas, an internal battle raged within him. The fear of stepping too far into an unknown territory intertwined with a fierce desire to declare his newfound identity. The weight of potential judgment hung in the air. Conflicted but determined, he prepared to dive deeper into this transformation. But a tumultuous thought surfaced. Was he really ready to expose himself fully? The emotional stakes were rising. His next step could either solidify his journey or pull him painfully back into obscurity. With each new idea written down, Jonathan felt a dawning realization. This was no longer just about him, but about everyone willing to take the journey with him. As he stood at the precipice of this evolution, the next chapter awaited. And yet, just then, his phone illuminated with another notification, a direct message from an old colleague imploring him to reconsider his new pursuits. With anxiety pooling in his stomach, he realized the past was still reaching for him, and he could either let it pull him back or stand firm in his new realities. Would he let the shadows of yesterday dim his light, or would he continue to burn brighter in his quest for authenticity? Jonathan felt a tightness in his chest as he read the message from his old colleague, Mark. The same familiar doubts flickered in his mind, the specter of who he used to be looming large. His breath quickened. Was this just a reminder of the career he had decided to leave behind, or was it a genuine invitation to reconsider his path? Mark's words were persuasive, laden with praise for the stability of their old work environment. "You were always a top performer, Jonathan. Think about it. The security, the prestige, maybe this isn't the right time to venture into the unknown." The thought of that cushy, predictable lifestyle was tantalizing, like an iced coffee on a hot summer day. But beneath the surface, Jonathan knew it was a tether to a life that felt stifling. He placed his phone down, surrounding himself with the notes he had jotted down during his conversation with Sarah. The workshop, the community, the chance to transform not just himself but others. All of it was within reach, waiting for him to claim. Each scribbled idea felt like a wildflower in a field. Ignored for too long, it now had the chance to bloom. But would the past allow him to grow? His fingers tapped restlessly against the table, as he fought against the seductive pull of Mark's message. Should he give in to the sirens calling him back to a familiar shore, or sail out into the uncertainty of his new venture? Jonathan needed clarity, and he knew where to find it. He took a deep breath and decided to reach out to Sarah again. There was something powerful about her perspective, something that pushed the boundaries of fear and compelled him to think expansively. He typed quickly, sharing Mark's message and his ensuing conflict. Within moments, a notification chimed back, a stream of encouragement, coaxing him to think past the limits of his fear. What if you aren't stepping into the unknown, but stepping into something more authentically you? Those words crystallized Jonathan's internal debate. Was this new journey the most honest representation of who he'd become? The decision to step into vulnerability layered with the potential for growth became clearer. But vulnerability was never easy, and the long-buried fear of judgment bubbled once more. Would he risk exposing his deeper self to people who had previously defined him solely by his work? Jonathan resolved to confront this fear. He spent the next few hours planning, crafting a structure for his first workshop. It would be titled Authenticity Unlocked and focus on creating a space for individuals to share not just their triumphs, but their struggles. He envisioned sharing his own stories, those moments of hesitation and pain that had defined his path since leaving his former life. But the more he wrote, the heavier the weight of his decision felt. He realized it wouldn't just be about exposing himself, but also about embracing the reality of his experiences and stories. The decision to be raw and honest would demand the same from participants. Would they be willing to take the leap with him? As he pinned down the final outline, a nagging thought pressed against him. What would Mark think if he saw this? The specter returned, a ghost of what he used to be, and doubt flickered in his mind. Would this workshop silo him further from those who once held power over him, or empower him to find deeper connections with those who shared a similar path? The paradox unsettled him, but also invigorated him. He knew he stood on the edge of something transformative. Then, Jonathan's phone chimed again. It was another notification, a message from someone entirely unexpected, a potential participant questioning the workshop's relevance. Instantly, his heart raced. This immediate challenge only sharpened the stakes. There could be no backing down now. Determined, he typed back slowly but with conviction, laying out the intentions behind his project. However, as he clicked send, Jonathan couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a dizzying spiral of opposition and revelation. The gears in his mind churned with one thought. As everything unfolded, would he find the resilience to rise, or would he become consumed by past shadows? Jonathan stepped out of the taxi and stood still for a moment, letting the New York skyline loom before him. Each building represented a part of his life, his past ambitions, triumphs, and the elegant gloss of his corporate identity. Yet today, he felt a tangible breeze upon his skin, a gentle nudge toward the life he was choosing to embrace. He had made a leap. The workshop titled Authenticity Unlocked was not merely a project. It was the manifestation of his transformation and an acceptance of the discomfort that came with change. The venue was modest yet inviting, filled with rustic charm and warmth, the exact antidote to the sterile boardrooms of his past. As he arranged the chairs in a circle, a wave of nerves washed over him. Would anyone show? The whisperings of doubt crept back, but he inhaled sharply, drowning them out with a defiant affirmation that echoed in his heart. This was not just about him. It was about shared journeys and vulnerability. As attendees trickled in, faces radiated with curiosity and apprehension, much like his own. Old friends and unfamiliar strangers merged into a tapestry of individuals yearning for connection and authenticity. Each person carried an untold story, a thread woven from wealth as emptiness, or the weight of unfulfilled dreams. Jonathan felt a profound echo of his journey reflected in theirs. The workshop began, and Jonathan opened up with his story, how he had once viewed success solely through the lens of wealth and accolades. He spoke candidly about the day he found Lily at the airport, how her presence ignited a reckoning inside him, a pivotal moment that shaped his desire to leap toward a more purposeful life. He revealed his fears and vulnerabilities, stripped of the facade of competence that had once shielded him from genuine connection. Moments of silence flourished as participants listened. Empathy flowed through the room, intertwined with shared gasps and quiet nods of understanding. "What if we redefine success together?" he proposed. The idea struck a chord, igniting a discussion that reverberated through the gathering. Individuals began to share their own stories, weaving a rich narrative of collective courage in the face of their respective journeys. As participants embraced their struggles in a space free of judgment, Jonathan felt a powerful shift, a realization that he was not just an outsider looking in, but rather a part of this vibrant tapestry evolving in real time. With each story shared, he sensed a bond forming, effortlessly replacing the loneliness that had often accompanied his former pursuits. The workshop transformed from a platform for one-man-led discussions into a heartfelt syncopation of voices rising in solidarity. After the session, Jonathan lingered for a moment, digesting the vibrant energy in the room. Feedback flowed in, validating the effort that had once felt so insurmountable. Buoyed by an exhilaration unlike any he'd known in his previous life, he embraced each person who lingered, heartfelt thank yous bridging their previously disparate worlds. He felt alive, invigorated by the very essence of what success had come to mean to him: genuine relationships founded on shared experiences. In teaching others to unlock their authenticity, he healed his own fractures, knitting together a new foundation based on empathy and the reminder that real growth often stemmed from discomfort. The next day, Jonathan received an unexpected call from Mark, his former colleague. "People are talking," Mark said, the admiration evident in his voice. "They want to know more about this workshop of yours." Standing in his apartment, Jonathan allowed himself a smile. "This is just the beginning," he replied, his resolve firm. Each acknowledgement felt like a stepping stone, rooting him deeper into legitimized self-worth that transcended the corners of boardrooms and profit margins. Months later, the first wave of Authenticity Unlocked blossomed into a meticulous web of workshops across the city. Word spread like wildfire as participants invited friends, legitimizing the importance of vulnerability and the power of shared experiences. As he stood on a stage at a larger venue for the first time, a fresh wave of excitement coursing through him, Jonathan felt the weight of his past lifting further away. No longer did he seek validation in wealth. He achieved fulfillment through connection. A journey that began in uncertainty culminated in a profound understanding of who he was, who he chose to be, and how he would face the world moving forward. "Thank you for joining me today," he began, gazing out at the sea of eager faces. "Together, we're going to redefine what it means to thrive." The applause that followed was a manifestation of shared intention, a moment that solidified his evolution. Jonathan stood firm, beaming with solid confidence, recognized competence, and a sense of belonging he had longed for. His journey was far from over, yet he was already on the path to an intricately woven future marked by authentic connections and meaningful experiences. Today, he embodied change. Today, he was free. If you found Jonathan's story of transformation inspiring and want to witness more emotional journeys of profound change, you need to subscribe now to the channel. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like to feed the algorithm, because your engagement matters. Please comment your thoughts on this conclusion and share your theories about the journey. Don't wait even one more second. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible conclusion.